I'm here with SNY Jets analyst and draft expert extraordinaire, Connor Rogers. The first guy that we heard from on Wednesday was linebacker Arvell Reese. He's met with the Jets and called them a serious organization. What stands out to you about him?
God, he could just do so many things well, Chelsea. You could play him off the ball. He's smart. He's physical. He plays with speed and violence. And then you look at an Ohio State defense that fortunately asked him to also play on the edge and rush the passer a little bit. The movement in space, you heard him say here, I hope people say I ran fast when I'm done. He's a top-tier athlete. He's physical. He's a really young prospect. This is somebody that's probably going to be playing his rookie season around 21 years old. He's not even reached that, full build yet that he's going to have. So does so many things well and can be kind of a chess piece for your front seven and a guy that can be the identity of your front.
You mocked David Bailey, the edge out of Texas Tech, at number 2. What puts him above others in being a good fit for the Jets?
This one's a little more simple. With Arvell, you're trying to project what is he going to be best at the next level because he's good at a lot of things. With David Bailey, he's going to get off the ball and chase the quarterback around, and that's a valuable skill set in this league, Chelsea, and it's something the Jets weren't good enough at last year. They didn't get the season they expected from Jermaine Johnson coming off the Achilles. Will McDonald was kind of hot and cold throughout the year, and Bailey's a guy that he's gone up against some top competition at the college level. Texas Tech was a college football playoff team this year, and his ability, once again, to fire off the ball, to win inside and outside, to win with that speed. I think he's more physical than he gets credit for. A lot of people label him as a liability against the run. I think that's so much better against the run down the stretch. So if you need somebody to pin their ears back and attack the quarterback, this is your guy.
Yeah, another option is Ruben Bain out of Miami, reigning ACC Defensive Player of the Year. He calls himself a monster. How would you profile him?
Yeah, we had him on the set today, and man, that guy is all business, and you could see how he's turned himself into this caliber of a prospect. The power profile that he has, he's somebody that can play inside and outside a little bit for you as well. That Miami team, there weren't a lot of people picking them to go to the national title game before the season, and Ruben Bain's a big reason why. He also gives you a floor that maybe the other guys don't. What I mean by that is it would just be very surprising if Ruben Bain's not a good player in this league because the power profile translates so consistently at the next level. And now, does he have the ceiling as a pass rusher as David Bailey, or does he have the versatility that Arvell Reese has? No, he lacks those things, but he's going to drive off offensive linemen backwards. He's stout against the run. And honestly, his pursuit speed to sack the quarterback is much better than given credit for at his size.
There is a lot of talk about Caleb Downs, the safety out of Ohio State. A lot of people deem him as the top defensive player on the board. But is that a worthwhile target for the Jets?
This is always a tricky one, right? Because safety and you look at running back, these positions that don't get valued the same way at the top of the draft. But Caleb Downs, there's a world where when my big board is finalized in April, he could be the number 1 or number 2 player on top of it. So if you're the Jets, you're sitting there with the number 2 pick. Well, we'd like to get the best player in the draft. And Downs could do a lot of different things for you. He's matched up with tight ends. He's played single high safety. He comes down to the box with great instincts to blow up screens and attack the run. He's incredibly smart. He's one of the smartest safeties I've ever evaluated. But you have to wonder how much, and that's on the Jets staff to figure out with their scheme. How much does this safety impact our defense, and what kind of impact can he make? This is a defense that did not take away the football last year. Is he going to help that? I think they're going to lean more towards drafting a player that plays up front for them and attacks downhill more often. But Caleb Downs, there's no denying he's one of the best players in this draft.
Let's focus in on the wide receivers, which is most likely going to be a priority for the Jets on day one. Knowing what they have in Garrett Wilson, what's one guy or one receiver that you see that could be the best fit for the Jets?
Right, you want somebody that complements his skill set, right? I look at Carnell Tate, ironically also from Ohio State. So the Jets have had some success drafting a wide receiver from there recently, notably with Garrett Wilson. And Carnell Tate, he could play on the outside. He has that skill set to win above the rim. I think he's very, very calculated with his route running for a bigger wide receiver, but you want the physical body type that can kind of challenge and stress those outside corners. So I like the match, pairing them together. And then you have Adonai Mitchell in this receiver room who kind of gives you that vertical threat as well. Those three would pose a lot of problems for opposing secondaries.
Yeah, I was going to ask you, what are some other names that Jets fans should look out for on the wide receiver?
Right, it's kind of that stare down at pick 16, right? Where is Carnell Tate going to be there? It's unlikely, but does one of him, Mekhi Lemon, or Jordan Tyson, the top 3 receivers in this draft, make it a 16? And that's where if you're the Jets, you want to be careful, and sometimes you want to let the draft come to you to get some value. A couple years ago, people were looking around and going, where is Jackson Smith and Jigba going to go? And he fell down the board, and you look at what he's able to do for Seattle right now. It's a position that top talent that you don't think is going to fall ends up falling. So does Mekhi Lemon or Jordan Tyson? Mekhi Lemon from USC, dynamic slot receiver, so tough at the catch point, and then so good at separating. And that's the name of the game for Jordan Tyson from Arizona State, who he's got to answer some medical questions here because he was banged up at the end of the year, and it sounds like he is not going to test here in Indy. But he's a dynamic player that kind of reminds me a little bit of Garrett Wilson in some ways. So, Chelsea, this is a really good wide receiver class again.
And speaking of letting the draft come to you, do you see the Jets waiting until day 2 to potentially pick up a wide receiver?
Very possibly, especially when you look at you're picking at 33, right? You get the whole 24-hour cycle to go, okay, we got our 2 players in round 1. Now we're going to go home and kind of reset. Do we want to trade this pick? Did a wide receiver fall? And this is a deep wide receiver class where there's going to be a run on day 2. We kind of hear that most years, and it's going to stay true this year. Omar Cooper from Indiana, who a lot of people got to see in their national title run, he's a very, very dynamic threat. You just wonder, will one of the 2 kind of sandwich between the first round and the start of the second round, and Casey Concepcion from Texas A&M and Denzel Boston from Washington? Would one of those guys make it at 33? And do you kick the can all the way down to 44 and like a Jeremy Bernard from Alabama or Chris Brazzell from Tennessee, more of a vertical threat? There's all different kinds of types, and there's all different kinds of tiers all the way to that 44th pick where they don't have to panic and take one early if they feel like they can wait.
Let's talk quarterbacks. We all know that Fernando Mendoza is going to be going at number 1. The next guy in line, the quarterback out of Alabama, Ty Simpson, who did announce that he will be working out at the Combine. How can he raise his draft stock in the Combine?
Just being in front of these teams, Chelsea, is so important because this is somebody that I thought September and October played high-level quarterback. And then you kind of see the game fall off a little bit as the season got deeper. And he was playing hurt throughout some of that stretch, too. He had a college undisclosed injury. It sounds like it was related to his back. And they didn't run the ball that well. There were some drops. So there were some things around him that fell apart. And he wants to remind everybody of the player he was the first half of the season. He's got a good enough arm, great middle-of-the-field thrower. At the Combine in this environment, it's about the timing, right? And it's about being in an uncomfortable script where you're not, at the facility that you're trained at throwing to your wide receivers. You're throwing to different people, and spotlight's on you. You're on national TV. Every single NFL team is here. I would imagine the board work for him behind the scenes when everybody is either out or sleeping here at the Combine. The teams are interviewing these players, and he's asked to do the board work, and that's an area he's going to excel in. So there's a part of the Combine is for these teams is figuring out the range these players are going to go. Is this somebody that can go all the way at the Rams of the first round, the Jets at 16? Is he going to fall into day 2? And the medicals will dictate some of that as well.
And I was going to ask you, if he does raise his draft stock, how soon do you think that he will go?
Well, this is fascinating, right? Because you have the dominoes in front. Like, what are the Browns going to do at quarterback? What are the Cardinals going to do at quarterback? What are the New York Jets going to do at quarterback? Who's going to sign Malik Willis? Because one of these teams is going to sign Malik Willis, then they're not taking a quarterback in the first round. They're probably not taking a quarterback in the second or third round. Teams view Malik Willis as the guy. So there's a lot of dominoes for that, but if a team falls in love with him, I've been doing the draft long enough to tell you that no range is off the table, whether it's Bo Nix and J.J. McCarthy in recent memory. There's all different kinds of risers every year. I remember, many years ago when Baker Mayfield was viewed as a day 2 guy and ended up being the number 1 pick in the draft. So there's a world where Ty Simpson goes in the top 13 picks of this draft, and the Jets don't even have that opportunity at 16, but he's got a long way to go before that's set in stone.
So to put a bow on this, what would constitute a successful draft for the Jets?
Rounding out this roster in the areas that change the game. And I know that sounds simple, but how do you attack the quarterback? Can you go find that pass rusher that changes the dynamic of your, really the look of your front? Get another playmaker across from Garrett Wilson, so teams can't just take him out of the game. So you have 2 wide receivers that can really funnel your pass game through. And then obviously capitalize on the top-end talent. And you need somebody in the middle of that defense at linebacker that can set the tone. We're going to see what they do in free agency. I have a feeling they would attack safety and try to get stronger in that area. And they're going to bring Elijah Vera-Tucker back. Right. Because if they don't bring Elijah Vera-Tucker back, all of a sudden interior offensive line comes into play with those first 4 picks in the 44, the top 44 of this draft. So you got to round out the key areas. They need to get faster and more physical. To me, wide receiver and the front 7.
A lot of options on the table for the Jets. For Connor Rogers, I'm Chelsea Sherrod here from Indianapolis.